Now, have you ever noticed that a normal conversation is fine until you step into an elevator? Everything's going fine. You're laughing. You're telling a story. And then the doors open. 3 strangers walk in and you go, I'll tell you later. Nobody keeps talking. It just gets silent. You start looking at the numbers. You start looking at your shoes as though they're fascinating. Nobody makes eye contact. So what changed? The only thing that changed is now there's more people. There's more people. And that shouldn't really change anything, and yet we all know that changes everything, particularly in an elevator. Now it's awkward because it potentially impacts you. That's kind of how it feels when we move from verse 43 to verses 44 and 45. Let's look at it together. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. And everything was going great in this sermon, and then all of a sudden now we talk about the 3 P's and things get awkward. We're talking about property, we're talking about possessions, and we're talking about paychecks. It's like an elevator ride. We're fine talking about our personal meals together and Bible studies. We're okay talking about signs and wonders, but you start talking about finances and what that actually means for us, and now it becomes awkward. But the thing is, if a family is going to grow, that has implications on us. If a family's going to grow, that means something. As the family gets bigger, and if that's the goal, if the goal is that the family gets bigger, then that's going to cost us something because now the need is greater. This is another natural and supernatural movement of God's Spirit in the church, and that's generosity. And some people read a passage like this, and they see that everybody just sold things as they needed, and they say, oh, the Bible's advocating for socialism. I'll be clear, the Bible doesn't advocate for a social system, it advocates for surrender. The Bible does not advocate for a social system, it advocates for surrender. It's not planning out an economic structure, it is describing a community that saw the needs of the family over their own. A family that was willing to sacrifice, willing to give to anyone who had need. Now, this doesn't mean they formed a commune. It doesn't mean that no one owned anything. It means that they saw themselves as the family of Christ, and their lives, their resources, and their priorities were open-handed. It was about adding more people to the family. That was the goal. The mission was clear. And they weren't known for what they owned, they were known for what they gave. And this was voluntary. The Spirit stirred them as anyone had need. They sold their possessions. They gave of their resources. They gave of their time, their talents, and their finances as needs arose. The point was that this was love, this was sacrificial love in action. That as we had been given from God, we can now give back so that the family expands. And so we're going to shoot straight here. We're talking about generosity. We're talking about giving. And one version that we find within Scripture is called tithing. Tithing is giving the first 10% of your income, your produce, your resources back to God as an act of worship, as an act of obedience, and as a recognition and an acknowledgement that all of my things are God's anyway. And so I'm going to give them as they've been given to me. Now, tithing is a tough subject in the church, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, because what the church avoids talking about is where the enemy invades. What the church avoids is where the enemy invades. The things we don't like talking about become the areas that the enemy gets to whisper in our ears. And you know what, church? He will always have something to say. He always has something to say. It's like an elevator ride. If we don't talk about this because we think it's awkward, then culture gets to dictate who we become as the church. We can't do that here.